could you help me think of a deck list for a Horus stun deck that wants to go first, that also uses the new Fiendsmith archetype from the upcoming core booster? Here's a potential deck list to get you started. 3 Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 8, 3 Fiendsmith Pangea, 3 Fiendsmith Cathode, 3 Armored Zombie, 3 Machina Gear Frame, 3 Mystic Tomahawk, 3 Cardi, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Pot of Greed. Wait, that card's banned. 3 1-for-1. That card's limited to 1. And where are the level 1 monsters that you actually need to special summon from the deck with this? 3 Fiendish Chain, 3 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Call of the Haunted, 3 Royal Decree, 3 Raigeki, 3 Horn of Heaven. And onto the extra deck. 2 Borosaur Dragon, 2 Appaloosa the Gemini Dragon, 2 IP Masquerena, 2 number 101 Silent Honor Arc, 2 number 25 Force Focus, 1 Boral Guard, 1 Imperial Order, and 1 Starlight Road. Okay, so now that we got all that out of the way, here's the actual deck list that I want to try for the rest of the video. Try and get a good duel in and see how all this list could actually perform. So, it is a Horus list. It is also a stun build. So yeah, first things first, 3 Imseti, Glory of Horus. One of the other, like, Sons of Horus that I would rather not draw into, but I do want to just dump them into the graveyard with a King Sark. 3 of the new Fiendsmith Engraver, who will search up the 1 copy of Fiendsmith Tract. 1 Fabled Lurie, which he will search off of Tract to immediately discard to special summon itself, and this Light Fiend will really get the Fiendsmith engine going. This is here because I'm still playing the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, so I'll need a Crystal Beast, like, in the deck somewhere to go search up my field spell, my preferred field spell of choice. Well, also the Imperial Tomb. But we do have, like, a sort of Swiss Army knife situation where I also have the option to just instead go grab a Secret Village of Spellcasters if, I don't know, I already have all the field spells I want, or I don't know, maybe I just want to be, like, maybe I want to shut my opponent out of spell cards if, I don't know, they're heavily reliant on it. So this is another card I really do not want to draw, especially more so than the, like, other Sons of Horus that aren't Imseti. 3 Kashtira Fenrir. For a deck like this, you really do want to keep your hand size high. This puts a pretty solid body on the board that also just doubles as interaction to just deal with, like, some of your opponent's face-up cards. On top of just searching other copies of itself, so you special summon this for free. You just add another copy of Fenrir to just make up for the 1 card in your hand that you just lost by summoning the first Fenrir. Yeah, because Horus, you really want to just have, like, as many cards in your hand as possible to send off the sarcophagus, and Fenrir is both good going first and second. This deck plays hand traps on a lot of them. I kind of just lean towards a more hand trap heavy variant of Horus Stun, less floodgates, more hand traps, because if I just open a bunch of floodgates and I have to go second, it's much less convenient than if I open hand traps, I can use them either going first or second. So I'm trying 3 Ash, 2 Ghost Spell. Maybe I could bump up the Druiswarm to, like, 2. So yeah, 1 Hut, 1 Druis, 2 Nibiru, 2 Draw and Lock, and that would be it for the monsters. Spell and Trap lineup, 2 Thrust? No, 2 Talent, 1 Thrust, what am I saying? This I feel like I still really want to keep in the deck because it just never feels good to have your Imseti get negated by Ash Blossom. So this is just extra insurance to make sure your Imseti goes through, or any other critical piece of, like, your deck actually does get to resolve. Also has the utility of maybe just taking out a crucial monster in your opponent's graveyard if they try and use its effect. Yeah, 3 King Sarcophagus, 3 Walls of the Imperial Tomb, which search Imseti, which searches King Sarcophagus. There's a lot of cards that get to King Sarcophagus now in this deck list. Oh yeah, I already mentioned the Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Also something we could just, more likely than not, we would just search this off of a Rainbow Bridge and just hard draw it. And for the Floodgates, because this is a stun list still, technically. 3 Skill Drain, 1 There Can Be Only One. Oh, and also other ways to get to my field spells, which gets to my Imseti, which gets to my King Sark, the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. Which we can now get to with the Fiendsmith engine, because we will be able to, yeah, use the Tractus to search the Lurie, to discard the Lurie to the Tractus to summon the Lurie itself, because it will just revive itself when it's discarded to the graveyard. You will then just do a series of plays with the Fiendsmith monsters. Starting with Requiem, you will build your way up to Sequentia, who will then just, use the Fiendsmiths already in your graveyard to fusion summon a Lacrimosa, who will bring back another Fiendsmith monster. Yeah, specifically the level 6 Engraver. And then that will let you get into a Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal, and she will be able to put Rainbow Bridge of Salvation into your graveyard, and from that, you can get to any field spell in your deck that you want. This is just one of the few, possible uses of a Beatrice, and now this is actually just... Yeah, this is literally just like a one-card Beatrice, this whole combo line. Which, essentially, I'm using it just to get to the rest of my Horus engine, but I would have other ideas of uses for it. Still thinking if I maybe want to run the transaction rollback. I know it's not in this list, but it's another option maybe worth considering if, I don't know, I already got all my Horus stuff just fine, and maybe want to try and floodgate my opponent out of the game. Yeah, send transaction rollback in one of these, trap cards of choice. I also don't really have the Ghost Meets Girl one in here, but let's just say if I do get to, a field spell, or I get to the Rainbow Bridge, which searches up the Cobalt Eagle, because this is a Wind-Winged Beast, I could play that alongside Harpy's Featherstorm to basically lock my opponent out of using any monster effects for an entire turn, which... this could potentially just win games by itself. So the extra deck looks mostly the same. The Xyz lineup is pretty much mostly the same, except for Beatrice now being included in the lineup. This is just, how we summon this off of, one Fiendsmith activation if nothing gets hand-trapped. So I had to just cut a lot of, I had to cut all the Super Poly targets to make room for all of the new Fiendsmith extra deck monsters. And I do plan to just kind of go into Appaloosa at the end of my typical, Horus stun combo. Because the way I set up my board, just a single Fiendsmith Engraver alone can end me on a Beatrice who's already sent a card from deck to graveyard. It would mainly be this, most likely, but it could be other options. And I'd end on a Fiendsmith Sequentia, so this would give me 3 link materials worth of monsters. So if I just give up one of my Horus monsters, or a Kashtira Fenrir perhaps, if I have that lying around, I can go into a 3 material Appaloosa, so that's 3 monster negatives right there. And yeah, the side deck is still mostly unsolved. I decided to just move my Lava Golems and even try Raw Sphere mode to make up for the missing Super Poly, because I cut all the Super Polymerizations targets to make room for, the Fiendsmith extra deck monsters. And then the rest of this side deck does more or less look the same as the deck I've just been using on previous streams. And I'm gonna maybe, I still want to try the Featherstorm with the Cobalt Eagle. Because any of these, Fiendsmith Engine cards, there's 5 cards that can get the Fiendsmith Engine going, which lets me access the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, which lets me access, the Crystal Beast, that's the Wind-Winged Beast, to make the Featherstorm alive. Or even if I just so happen to draw this and have a way to get it into the graveyard, that too gets me my Wind-Winged Beast. So yeah, that is the deck list. So with all that out of the way, let's actually try to get a sample hand and then just do a little test run with it, assuming that we're not going to run into any hand traps. So let's just assume that I do get an opening hand where I do get, for example, one of my 3 Fiendsmiths. I would first get the Fiendsmith Tractus. Activate it. With this, go search out the Fabled Lurie. And then I do have to discard a card, which would be... Fabled Lurie itself, once I find it, that is. If it's discarded to the graveyard, it just special summons itself. You would then go ahead and link this off for Fiendsmith's Requiem. Tribute it to summon another Fiendsmith from the deck. Another of the level 6 guys. You would need at least 2, but you ideally want this at 3 copies. Then this one can actually just revive itself by putting one of my Light Fiends on the bottom of the deck and shuffling. So from here, I would then just use these as link material to summon a Fiendsmith Sequentia. And with that, I will do a fusion summon by putting this back into the extra deck and shuffling one of the Fiendsmith Engravers back into the main deck. I would want to summon a Fiendsmith Lacrimosa here. On summon, I will special summon back this Fiendsmith. Once again, I have 2 level 6s. I would overlay for, Beatrice. Do I really want to send anything to the graveyard right now? Actually, no, I definitely will. I'm going to send... This is just Fiendsmith added to my current Horus Stun deck list, which was playing Rainbow Bridge of Salvation to be able to banish itself to get any field spell, assuming you still have a Crystal Beast in the deck, which I do. I recently swapped out the Sapphire Pegasus for a Cobalt Eagle, and I will get into this later. Let's just assume the Imseti does not get Ashed, and I can discard it and another card to just access the King Sark. So I would have access to the Horus monsters. And if my opponent needs to activate spells, I can always just go grab Secret Village of the Spellcasters off of this. So assuming, yes, we do not get Ashed here. And we would not need the Cobalt Eagle, that's just discard fodder at this point. I would grab the Sarcophagus, put this into the hand, draw 1, activate. Send this as cost for Sarcophagus. I don't really need like 2 Ashes in the same hand. That's redundant. And then, just start dumping Horuses left, right, and center. And then think as to whether or not I want to just, send more cards to the grave. I mean, thinking here, maybe I don't want to send too many. I do kind of like to keep some of these cards around. If I do this with the Fiendsmith engine and it goes uninterrupted, I could just turn one single Fiendsmith Engraver in my hand into a Beatrice that can easily send a Rainbow Bridge of Salvation just to get to the Horus engine via Waltz of the Imperial Tomb if I can't get to it already. I'll have her lying around, and I'll have a Fiendsmith Sequentia, which is a Link 2. So this is already like 3 monsters worth of Link material. And then I guess I just get rid of like a Horus that I think I will need the least. And just like that, I can have a 3 material Apolauzo, so that's 3 monster negates. And I have another Floodgate. So, assuming I don't get interrupted, I could expect to maybe have an end board that looks something like this. I would just go view the replays. I actually did record myself doing the duels in real time, but I would rather just go back and view through the replays instead. Get through it much quicker because I have almost an hour of raw footage of me playing duels. Plural, by the way. So I'm going up against apparently Ursarctic Drytron. I do remember that Drytron got some new support, and my opponent just randomly admits defeat. And this is why we have multiple duels, because I get paired up against an opponent who doesn't actually know how to search their deck. In a game where this is an integral part of the game. So yeah, if you hover over your deck, there's a view option, and then you can look through your deck. In case you don't know how to do that. And then I get confused, which screen is this guy currently on? We're currently on the side deck screen. He admitted defeat, and we're siding. At least I think he's looking at the same screen as me. He doesn't actually side, so I choose to not side as well. Again, my opponent goes first. Special summons this Ursarctic monster, sets one, and passes. So as you saw already, I was going to attempt to do the Fiendsmith line, but this gets ashed, so I'm not doing Fiendsmith plays. Unless I normal summon the Lurie. And then just get the Fiendsmith engine going that way. So I'm still going to just do the play that I showed you earlier with the solo mode sample. Except it's going to get stopped here because he has effect failures, just negate the sequentia. And then from here on out, I just go with Horus plays. Probably are going to go completely uninterrupted, most likely, because the Fiendsmith engine already just baited out 2 hand traps. Okay, main phase 1 imperm on the Dua Mutef. Not even gonna wait for Dua Mutef to try and crash into anything. Oh, how to decrease life points. I also have to, like, remind my opponent how to actually, like, remove life points when they take damage. I mean, if this wasn't a replay, you would see the box in the middle with, like, a plus and minus next to it. Where you just type in numbers and that lets you just decrease life points. I just decide to make 3 material Apollousa. If my opponent can't play through that, I'm just gonna go revive the Horus monsters that I just used as link material anyways. I wanted a more difficult matchup, so I played multiple duels actually. I was hoping for more challenging matchups, so we're doing multiple duels. Again, I lose the rock, paper, scissors, so my opponent gets to start first. I have 2 hand traps. The Quibus and Whiff. Okay, I don't really need to stop any sort of plays because my opponent just sets 1 and passes. So again, I opened like one of the engravers in my hand, so I was going to at least attempt to start playing the Fiendsmith line, but I get cut off by a Droll and Lockbird as soon as I add the Tractus, so I cannot go get the Fabled Lurie. I also have, like, this brick, 3 hand traps, and a talent that all I could do is just rip a card out of my opponent's hand. But I decide to maybe save it for another turn. So my opponent's on Centurion. I Ash their Primera, hoping it's going to do enough to slow them down. And then they do talent to draw to. And apparently they don't really find anything else, they just go to battle phase, attack for 1600. If I have to guess, my opponent didn't find much else. And now I'm free to... Well, actually, no, not quite. My opponent has Solid Judgment to stop the Tractus from resolving, so... I'm still out of Fiendsmith line. But at this point, I just decide to start doing Horus plays. And then my opponent scoops after the Horus plays start going. So far, both this duel and the previous one, the Fiendsmith engine hasn't really done anything besides just bait out hand traps so the Horus engines could just go through uninterrupted. Again, my opponent goes first and just sets 1 and passes. Later they tell me they've just been drawing like really bad hands. And again, just like before, I can't really like extend under Droll and Lockbird. I'd probably run into some problems when I try and just do the Fiendsmith plays. I cannot discard Imseti and another card to go grab Sarcophagus. If I had Sarcophagus in this hand, this wouldn't be a problem, just being stuck under Droll like this, but... Okay, I guess I do try and do some Fiendsmith plays. Which, this gets ashed, so now I'm out of my Fiendsmith engine. So I just have to go, like, attack with a Fenrir and pass. And then my opponent shows me his hand, which is just one of the Centurions that can tend to get stuck in your hand if you don't get one of the level 4s, and, well, more hand traps. So again, I try one more time to get a duel that's going to make me work a lot harder. Even if I lose, I really do want to just give like the best showing of this Fiendsmith Horus stun list that I can. But apparently it takes us a while just to get through the rock, paper, scissors here. And again, my opponent wins and they choose to go first. And then I pretty quickly realize they're on Snake Eyes Diabell Star. They're on the best deck in the game currently. So I'm in doubt, so I Ash, the Snake Eye Ash. And as you're gonna see, it doesn't really slow them down at all. So this is just Snake Eyes plays. It's gonna be mostly full combo. The Ash Blossom that I used didn't really slow him down much. And then I see the Moon of the Closed Heaven and I'm like, okay. Just like that, he's going to get the Fiendsmith plays. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2024. Any two monsters in the game will get you to the Fiendsmith engine because she is a Light Fiend. Welcome to the new meta. You know that Beatrice I've been telling you about that's now like a one-card combo? Who can also just send 2 cards from your deck to the graveyard? That would be a transaction rollback and something like a Ghost Meets Girl or an Eradicator Epidemic Virus to just shut your opponent out of the game entirely for a turn. Any two monsters in the game can now get you to that. Welcome to the new meta. So we get a powerful Snake Eyes board that's made even more consistent, and also a little bit more powerful, but mainly more consistent because, yeah, if you need to get to your Snake Eyes, your main Snake Eyes engine one way or another, the Fiendsmith engine can get you there too because Beatrice can just put, for example, Snake Eye Ash in the graveyard. You can also just use the Sequentia and her to go link summon a Promethean Princess. You can then special summon this from your graveyard, and just like that, you have your starter. So of course, I tried to play through this board, and I'm gonna fail miserably. This is honestly not gonna do much of anything now at this point. So I have to play through, yeah, 2 Apollousa negates. This can negate up to 2 cards on my field, because it has the Sequentia equipped to it, so I have to play through the DS array, 2 negates here. I have to play through this, that. Oh, and there's also a Promethean Princess in the graveyard that he's activating right now. And I'm just like, fuck this shit, I'm out. You got it. So I decide to go first, hoping things go a little bit better because my deck is better going first than second, but ideally I try and build in such a way I can handle either. Okay, so I start off having to play under the Numalt Charming monster, so everything I summon from the hand gives him a free draw. So I'm thinking about whether or not I actually want to play the Fenrir after like a certain point, because if I do summon that, he gets a free draw. So I normal summon the Lurie. So I decide to go into the Fiendsmith engine. And this is where my opponent actually decides to be nice. He's playing like Snake Eyes Fiendsmith, but yeah, surprisingly he decides to be nice, helping me out here. So he's just giving me some really good advice. You could have just played the Tractus. Yeah, exactly. You can just play the Tractus to special summon the Lurie, if it's in your hand, rather than have to normal summon it. I kind of had tunnel vision here. I was just used to, like, searching up the Lurie with this and discarding it, but unless I had, like, all 3 of the Fiendsmith Engravers in hand, then yes, I can Tractus. And then discard the Lurie that way, and he doesn't get a free draw off the Malcharmy. So it lets me go back and then do the sequence of plays that's more beneficial to me, so quick shoutouts to what a format here. So after that, again, I try to do my Fiendsmith plays as normal. what I was showing you like closer towards the beginning of the video. So yes, I got to Lacrimosa, who's going to bring back the Fiendsmith Engraver. So I do the sequence of plays that gets me to the Sequentia and Beatrice. I'm putting the Rainbow Bridge in my graveyard. I'm going to use that to ideally try and grab. It goes through, so I get to my Horus field spell. And then through that, I can access Imseti. And then through Imseti. And yes, I did momentarily forget to put something on the bottom from the walls. And through all that, I'm able to get the King's Sarcophagus, as you can see. So I try to set up some Horus monsters on the field. So I get to 3 Horus monsters. My Sequentia, that's a link to, the Beatrice. And then I just get rid of one of the Horus monsters. I don't think I'll need too much. I go for that 3-material Apollousa. And yeah, get this. Lacrimosa, when it's sent to the graveyard... Okay, if it's sent to the graveyard in any way, shape, or form. You can shuffle one other Light Fiend monster from your... Which you're probably going to be able to meet the requirements for this if you played the Fiendsmith engine. The line of plays just guarantees that you'll have this, so you can shuffle it back and just do 1,200 points of damage to your opponent for free, on top of everything else that the Fiendsmith engine was already giving you. It's already like a 1-card Beatrice, and now, yeah, you can also burn your opponent for 1,200 damage. So you could also just steal games in time. For example, if you're playing this in real life, there's like, I don't know, 1 to 2 minutes left in the round, you just go do your Fiendsmith play going first. If you do it fast enough and your opponent can't do their turn fast enough, you just win because they have less life points than you. So my opponent opens Imperm, uses on Apollousa, so those 3 negates, they're gone. They don't exist anymore. Which makes it far easier for my opponent to go full combo, because this was the main source of my, like, disruption, really. I was gonna rely on that to just disrupt my opponent. And now I don't have it anymore. My opponent is still stuck under Droll Unlock. But even then, they're playing through Droll just fine. And already, like, I have much less of a board than I had, like, at the start of his turn. And yes, just like that, my opponent gets back to full Fiendsmith combo themselves. We're both playing this new engine. Not sure which one of us, or both, are actually going to go through trouble to buy these cards in real life, because last I checked, like, the 3 of was like $100 each, and it still might be going up as we speak. And yes, he is doing this all through Droll and Lockbird. He's not adding anything from deck to hand. As soon as I see the access code, I know it's like, yeah, it's game over. At this point, my opponent can more or less just destroy everything on my field. And also, not to mention, this has 1100 extra attack, so does this, because of the field spell. Yes, that's lethal on board. Also, not to mention, this is on 5300 attack. So yeah, this deck that I played against is probably poised to be, like, by far the best deck of the meta going forward once Infinite Forbidden actually comes out, once the cards are, like, TCG legal. Snake Eyes Fiendsmith, everyone is just expecting this to be, like, by far the best deck in the room. I mean, Snake Eyes was already dominant to begin with. The Fiendsmith engine slots nicely into almost any deck in the game. It's like, yeah, what do you expect? So, I don't care that I got my ass whooped. I was kind of expecting it at this point after I saw the Snake Eyes stuff. Also, a little sad I never did get to try out the Harpy's Featherstorm with the Cobalt Eagle. It was just an idea I had. I probably have to do a lot more playtesting with this deck. And even then, I still don't know just yet if I'm gonna go, like, all in on the new Fiendsmith stuff, or maybe wait for the price to eventually go down, which would probably only realistically happen after, like, the cards get some reprints. Let's be real here. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got for the video. Hope you enjoyed.